When I first pulled up to Ravenwood FM, the night felt heavier than usual. The kind of weight you notice only when you stop the car and realize the engine's hum was the last familiar sound you'll hear for a while. The radio tower loomed behind the building, its red beacon pulsing through a veil of mist that crawled off the nearby woods. My breath fogged the windshield, and for a second, I just sat there, staring at the blinking light, counting the seconds between each flash. 3 seconds of darkness. Then a heartbeat of red. 3 seconds again. It was almost 2:30 a.m. My first night. My new start. I'd left Boston 2 weeks ago after everything went to hell. Lost my job, lost my apartment, lost the version of myself that believed the city could still be home. When I saw the ad for a night technician at a small-town station, low pay, low stress, isolated environment, it felt like a sign. I didn't even notice the name until I got the confirmation email. Ravenwood FM. Inside, the place smelled like dust and ozone. The reception area looked frozen in 1989, yellowed posters, a fake fern, a clock that had stopped at 3:36. A soundboard hummed somewhere deeper inside, the kind of constant electrical purr that settles under your skin. Sarah Kane was waiting for me in the control room. Early 30s, pale from the monitor glow, dark circles under sharper eyes. She wore big headphones around her neck and held a thermos like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "You're Alex," she said, not as a question. "Boston guy. You made it." I nodded, dropping my bag beside the chair. She gestured to the booth beyond the glass, a cramped room with a single mic, a cracked window, and walls layered in soundproof foam. "You'll be running maintenance, switching feeds, keeping the log. I'll handle the broadcast." She hesitated, glancing toward the old phone on the counter. Its cord was twisted like a noose. "You already read the rules, right?" I smiled, thinking she was joking. "You mean the orientation sheet?" Her expression didn't change. "No. The rules." She handed me a handwritten page, creased and stained. 4 rules, each written in block letters. 1. Don't look up the whispered names. 2. Don't look at the figure in the mirror. 3. Answer the blood calls. 4. Play the curse song before you leave. I laughed under my breath. This some local prank? Sarah didn't laugh. I thought that too. She poured coffee into a chipped mug and stared out the booth window. The last tech, Ethan, didn't make it through his 3rd shift. Left a note on the console before disappearing. "Don't let it hear you." Her voice was flat, but her hands trembled slightly as she set down the thermos. "Just follow the rules, Alex. That's how you make it till sunrise." We started the shift together. She handled the late-night dedications and ghost story segment, a small-town thing, callers spinning yarns about haunted lighthouses or the ghost hitchhiker on Route 9. I monitored the signal strength, logged timestamps, and tried not to think about how the fluorescent lights flickered every few minutes, in sync with the tower outside. By 2:47, the so-called Devil's Hour slot began. Sarah gave me a quick nod, slipped into the booth, and went live. "Good evening, night owls," her voice purred through the speakers, smooth but tired. "This is Sarah Kane, and you're tuned to Ravenwood FM, the heart of midnight in our little town. Wherever you are, keep your lights low, your coffee hot, and your secrets close." Her tone changed as she leaned closer to the mic. "Tonight, our topic is the names you should never whisper." I glanced at the paper again. Rule 1. Don't look up the whispered names. Half an hour passed quietly. I checked the mixer levels, the automation cue, the static meter. Somewhere around 310, the phone rang. Not the main line. The other one, an old rotary model with a cracked earpiece, no caller ID, no ringtone, just a harsh buzz that cut straight through the room. Sarah froze mid-sentence. Her eyes flicked to me. "Don't answer it," she mouthed. The buzzing stopped on its own. She turned off her mic, took a deep breath, then whispered, "Sometimes it calls when it wants to test you. Ignore it if I'm on air. Never pick up unless you hear the hum." "The hum," I repeated. "You'll know," she said. The rest of the hour blurred together. Static rose and fell like breathing, the tower light outside blinking its steady red pulse. At 3:30, she wrapped up the segment, played an old blues track from vinyl, and leaned back in her chair. "You did fine," she said. "Most people don't make it past their first call." I tried to joke it off. "So when does the hazing end?" Her face softened just enough for a tired smile. "When the static stops whispering your name." We signed off at 3:36 a.m., exactly on time. Sarah reached for a small cassette tape labeled in fading ink, "The Curse Song." She slid it into the deck, hit play, and an organ melody drifted through the speakers. Slow, minor keys. The kind of sound that feels older than language. The lights dimmed slightly as the song filled the studio. The hum in the walls settled, almost peaceful. When it ended, she whispered, "That's what keeps it asleep." I didn't ask what it was. She gathered her coat, handed me the building keys, and said she'd be out for a few nights. Her aunt had passed, funeral upstate. "You'll be running the Devil's Hour alone starting tomorrow," she said. "Just keep the log, the signal, and the rules. Especially the last one." I told her I could handle it. I meant it. I needed this job, needed to prove I could keep something steady. She gave me a look I couldn't read, half pity, half warning, then disappeared into the fog outside. I stayed behind to close up, shutting down the mixer channels one by one. When I turned off the booth lights, something strange happened. The glass didn't go black. A faint reflection still hovered there, even without light. It was me, but not exactly. My face lagged, half a beat behind my movement. I leaned closer, and for a split second, I thought I saw another face behind mine, burned, blurred, watching from the reflection's edge. Then the power flickered, and it was gone. I left the studio with the tower's pulse still blinking through the fog. 3 seconds of dark. One flash of red. Over and over. By the time I reached my car, I realized something impossible. The radio was still on inside the station. I could hear it faintly through the walls. The organ melody. The curse song. Still playing. The next night, the fog was thicker. It rolled through the parking lot like smoke, pooling around the base of the radio tower. The red beacon blinked, slow and steady, painting the mist in blood light. I almost turned back before even unlocking the door. I told myself the feeling in my chest was just nerves, not dread. Inside, the station was colder than it had any right to be. The heater had died sometime between shifts, leaving the air stale and heavy. My footsteps echoed on the cracked linoleum as I walked past the empty receptionist desk. Someone had moved the fake fern, now it faced the wall. When I reached the control room, everything was exactly as Sarah had left it, her coffee mug, half full and cold, the handwritten rules taped above the console, and that old rotary phone sitting silent beside the mixer. For a moment I almost felt stupid, believing the stories, the warnings, the rules. but the moment I touched the console, a faint hum ran up my arm, like static crawling under the skin. The clock on the wall flickered from 2:46 a.m. to 2:47. Devil's hour. I took a deep breath and switched the transmitter live. Good evening, this is Alex Harper filling in for Sarah Kane. You're tuned to Ravenwood FM, broadcasting from the edge of nowhere. My voice shook slightly, so I masked it with a laugh. Tonight's lineup, a little music, a little mystery, and hopefully, nothing too weird. I cued the first record and leaned back. The vinyl hissed under the needle, that soft crackle that feels almost alive. The hum in the walls deepened. It didn't sound mechanical, more like breathing through static. At 2:59, the phone rang. The old rotary, not the digital one. No ringtone this time, just that electric buzz drilling into the silence. I stared at it, remembering Sarah's voice, never pick up unless you hear the hum. The buzz stopped. Then the air changed, the background static from the monitors bent into a low, rhythmic pulse. A hum, deep and distant, vibrating in the glass. I reached for the receiver before I could talk myself out of it. Ravenwood FM, I said. This is Alex. For a few seconds, only static. Then a voice, faint, wet, like someone whispering from the bottom of a well. Don't look at it. The line went dead. I stood there, frozen, listening to the empty dial tone. Then, from somewhere behind me, a faint scrape, like fingernails dragging across the soundproof foam. I turned, but the room was empty. The lights flickered once, twice. Then steadied. Rule 1, don't look up the whispered names. Rule 2, don't look at the figure in the mirror. I didn't look anything up. I hadn't even seen a mirror. Yet the rules suddenly felt less like folklore and more like survival instructions. The rest of the hour passed in fragments, songs, ads, moments of dead air that stretched too long. Each time silence settled, I swore I heard breathing just behind the wall. At 3:30, I cued the curse song, just like Sarah said. The cassette clicked, the organ started, and that same uneasy melody filled the studio. My shoulders relaxed as soon as it began, a strange calm washing over everything. Then the power flickered. The music slowed, deepened, reversed for a heartbeat, then caught up again. The lights dimmed to orange. The hum in the walls stopped. And in the reflection of the glass booth, someone was standing behind me. I froze, watching through the corner of my eye. Charred jacket. Face half melted. Eyes like dying coals. Jack Ramsay. Every muscle in my body screamed to move, but I remembered Sarah's words, count backward from 10. 10. His reflection leaned closer. 9. The smell of burnt hair filled the room. 8. The organ wailed, as if the tape was alive. 7. Heat pressed against my neck. 6. 5. 4. The reflection blinked out. The cassette stopped. The air went still. For a long time, I didn't breathe. Then the phone rang again. Not the rotary, the main line this time. The red digital screen glowed with a number, unknown, 666. I picked up. Ravenwood FM. A voice sobbed softly. A girl. Maybe 20. Please, help me. I can't breathe. I fumbled for a pen. Who is this? Clara, she said. They buried me in the woods. Ravenwood Forest. Near the old sign with the bullet holes. Then the call cut out after exactly 47 seconds. The air filled with that same mechanical scream Sarah had warned about, every speaker erupting at once with static so loud it felt like the room itself was tearing apart. I slammed the receiver down. The noise stopped instantly. My ears rang for minutes afterward. I wrote down everything, the name, the location, the timestamp. Not because I believed it, but because I needed something solid, something rational. When the clock hit 3:36 a.m., I shut everything down. The tower outside blinked its steady red pulse. I was halfway to my car when I realized the cassette deck inside was still running. I hadn't rewound it. I hadn't pressed play again. But through the walls, faint and distant, that same organ melody was still playing. The curse song. I told myself maybe the machine had glitched, or maybe I'd imagined it. But as I stepped into the parking lot, my breath caught in my throat. The radio tower's light, it wasn't flashing anymore. It was steady. Constant. And from the dark line of trees behind it, something huge moved between the trunks, blacker than the night itself. I didn't stay to look. I got in the car, locked the doors, and drove until the station was nothing but a red pin fading in my rearview mirror. When I got home, the apartment felt wrong. The static hum followed me, faint, almost imperceptible, like the sound of electricity leaking from the walls. I unplugged the clock radio by my bed. The hum stayed. At 4 a.m., my phone buzzed. No number. Just one line of text, "Don't forget the song." I turned off my phone, crawled into bed, and lay there listening. Somewhere far away, faint through the night, I could still hear the organ melody playing. The next morning, I called the local sheriff's office. I told them about the call, about Clara, about the coordinates she'd given. The deputy sounded half asleep, half amused. "You've been listening to your own station too long, son." But later that day, I checked the news online. A body had been found in Ravenwood Forest. Female. Early 20s. No ID. Buried shallow. The article didn't mention the name. I closed the laptop and stared at my reflection in the screen. For a moment, the light behind me flickered, just once, and I thought I saw someone standing there. Burned. Waiting. The next shift started in less than 12 hours. And when I checked my voicemail that evening, there was a new message. No words. Just the sound of a cassette tape rewinding. Sleep didn't come easy after that second night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the hum. It wasn't loud, just a low vibration behind the eardrum, like someone whispering through a detuned frequency. I tried to drown it out with white noise apps, city traffic recordings, even old podcasts. Nothing worked. The sound was inside the silence, threaded through it like veins. By sundown I'd given up on rest. I drove aimlessly through Ravenwood's narrow streets, past boarded-up shops and peeling church signs. The town felt deserted, even in daylight. I stopped at a diner called Millie's, one of those places that smelled like burnt coffee and old sugar. The waitress looked half asleep until I mentioned where I worked. Her eyes sharpened. "You at the FM?" "Yeah," I said. "Night tech." "Just started." She hesitated before pouring the coffee. "My brother used to listen. Back when Ramsey ran the show." "Jack Ramsey?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "The fire took him. Folks say it started in the basement. But that building always had ghosts." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Don't stay past your shift, honey. That's when it listens. Before I could ask what she meant, a low tone rattled the diner windows, a sub-frequency hum that made the salt shaker vibrate. The waitress paled. "Storm coming," she muttered, backing away. But when I looked outside, the sky was clear. I left half the coffee untouched and drove straight to the station. The fog was back by the time I parked. The tower light pulsed through it like a heartbeat, slower than before, 5 seconds between each blink. The front door creaked open on its own, the lock already turned. Inside, the air was heavy with ozone again. I flipped on the hallway lights, only half of them worked. The rest hummed faintly, as if they were deciding whether to die. The console clock read 2:43 a.m. I started the broadcast early to steady my nerves. Good evening, listeners. This is Alex Harper back on Ravenwood FM, keeping the night alive while the world sleeps. Tonight's playlist is... The words caught in my throat. The monitor flickered. My script notes, the ones I'd typed earlier, had changed. Every line of text was replaced by a single sentence repeated over and over. Play the song. I rebooted the system. When it came back, everything looked normal again. I told myself it was a glitch. At 2:57, the rotary phone rang. I didn't move. I waited for the hum. Nothing. Just the buzz. When it stopped, the digital phone lit up instead, unknown, no ID. I hesitated, then answered. Static poured through the line like water boiling. Beneath it, a man's voice, thin, trembling. You played it wrong. Who is this? I whispered. The song. You didn't let it finish. I checked the logbook. Last night's entry showed the tape had run its full time. I did, I said. The voice crackled. It doesn't end with sound. It ends when it stops breathing. Then the call dropped. The studio lights dimmed to orange again. My monitors blinked off one by one, replaced by black screens reflecting my own face. Only, my reflection wasn't still. It mouthed something. Slowly. Don't look up the names. I grabbed the rule sheet. My hands were shaking. This isn't real, I said out loud, just to hear a human voice. Then the static on the line rose again, reshaping into faint syllables, a woman sobbing, begging, calling my name. Alex, please, help me. It was Clara's voice. I muted the output channel. The voice kept going. They're not buried. They're fed. Something slammed against the booth glass. Once. Twice. I couldn't see anything outside, just the tower's red light pulsing through the fog. The rotary phone rattled, spinning its dial on its own. I unplugged it from the wall. It kept ringing. That's when I realized the hum wasn't coming from the phone anymore. It was coming from the walls. From inside the soundproofing. A shape pressed outward from the foam, a human silhouette, shifting beneath the fabric, trying to push through. I stumbled backward, knocking over the mic stand. The organ from the Curse song started playing on its own, no cassette, no deck spinning, just the melody bleeding from the static. I ran. The hallway lights burst one by one as I passed. The exit sign flickered, then died. I found the door by memory, threw it open, and stepped into a fog so thick it swallowed the building behind me. The tower loomed ahead, taller than I remembered. The red beacon blinked once, then again, and stopped. The silence afterward was absolute. And then I heard it, breathing. Deep, ragged, inhuman. I turned back toward the station. A figure stood in the doorway, watching. Charred jacket, melted face, eyes glowing faintly red. But this time, he wasn't just reflection. He was real. "Jack," I whispered. The figure tilted its head. The burnt skin cracked when it smiled. "Play the song," it said in a voice like a furnace exhaling. I stumbled backward toward my car, fumbling for the keys. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. By the time I got the door open, the figure was gone. The station lights blinked back on all at once. Inside, through the glass, I saw the control room again, but Sarah was there. She was sitting at the console, headphones on, talking into the mic. Only she wasn't moving right. Her motions were jerky, puppet-like. The broadcast light glowed red. I could hear her voice faintly through the car radio, even though it wasn't tuned to our frequency. "This is Sarah Kane, and you're listening to Ravenwood FM. If you hear this, don't come back." The feed cut into static. Then my car engine died. I sat there, clutching the steering wheel, trying to process what I'd just seen. I told myself I'd drive to the sheriff's office when the sun came up, tell them everything, even if they laughed. But the horizon stayed dark. Minutes passed. No dawn. The clock on the dashboard blinked 3:36 a.m. Then 3:35. Then 3:34. Time was going backward. I turned off the ignition, opened the door, and the cold hit me like a wall. The tower's light came back on, red, steady, unwavering, and from the fog near the tree line, I saw them. Dozens of figures, barely visible through the mist. All facing the station. Some missing pieces. Some burned. All silent. When I blinked, they were gone. I drove until the signal faded, until the static finally broke into silence. But silence wasn't safety. The hum followed me again, faint, like a whisper riding under every frequency I tuned to. When I got home, my laptop was still open from earlier. A new file sat on the desktop. Audio format. Timestamped 3:36 a.m. File name, Ravenwood_shift03.wave. I hit play. It was me. My own voice, recorded live. "Good evening, listeners. This is Alex Harper." But halfway through the clip, another voice joined mine, overlapping, whispering from beneath the waveform. "Don't let it hear you." Morning felt like a rumor that never arrived. The clock on my kitchen wall insisted it was 8 a.m., but the light outside still looked like dusk stretched thin. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's puppet stiff movements in the booth, her mouth repeating words a second before the sound caught up. The hum was still in my ears. I thought it was tinnitus until the coffee maker joined in, a faint vibration under the drip, matching the same rhythm that pulsed through the tower light. I needed answers. I started with public records, property deeds, business filings. Ravenwood FM 91.3 MHz first appeared in 1977 under Ravenwood Broadcasting Ministries. Before that, the address was listed as Ravenwood Church of the Eternal Shade. The cult Sarah mentioned. The one that summoned the black shade. Old news scans filled the screen, grainy headlines about disappearances, ritual fires, unexplained bursts of radio interference across Massachusetts. In 1981, the church burned down. 5 bodies recovered, faces unidentifiable. The land sat empty until a local investor rebuilt it as a radio station. I scrolled through the archived photos, until one stopped me cold. A crowd outside the smoldering ruins. Firefighters. Reporters. And, at the edge of the frame, a man staring straight at the camera. Charred jacket. Jack Ramsey. The caption said the photo was taken 2 years before he died in the studio fire. My stomach dropped. Ramsey didn't just die at Ravenwood FM. He came from it. By nightfall I was back in the car, driving toward the woods behind the station. I told myself I wouldn't go inside. I just needed to see the place in daylight, prove it looked ordinary. But the fog never lifted, even under the noon sun. The road to the tower was lined with crooked crosses made from snapped branches. Some had names carved into them. Others were blank. At the tree line, I found the old sign Clara mentioned, rusted metal, bullet holes through the R and W. Beneath it, the earth looked freshly turned. I knelt, brushed away a layer of leaves, and found a cassette tape half buried in the dirt. No label, just black plastic and a smear of ash. When I held it up, faint static hissed from inside. Like it was breathing. I should have left it there. Instead, I took it back to my apartment, cleaned the mud off, and slid it into my old Walkman. For the first 10 seconds, nothing but hiss. Then a low chant, male voices overlapping in Latin phrases I couldn't translate. A woman sobbed between the syllables. Then an organ note, the same melody as the curse song, only slower. At the end, a whisper close enough to the mic that it made my skin crawl. Broadcast me. The tape clicked off. I sat there for a long time, staring at the player. Then the window beside me fogged over from the inside, and 4 words appeared in streaked condensation. Don't let it hear you. That night I decided I wouldn't go back. I emailed the station manager, or tried to. The message bounced back with address not found. The official website for Ravenwood FM had vanished, replaced by an error page in crimson text. Signal unrecognized. At 2:46 a.m., my lights flickered. At 2:47, the radio on my counter turned itself on. Sarah's voice. This is Ravenwood FM, broadcasting live from the dark heart of Massachusetts. For those who can still hear me, the loop is breaking. We can't hold it much longer. Then static. I grabbed my keys and drove. The station door was unlocked again. Inside, the hallway was darker than I remembered, the air thicker, almost liquid. Every fluorescent tube hummed at a different pitch, creating a dissonant chord that made my teeth ache. The control room looked normal at first glance. The console lights glowed green. The microphones waited, their cables coiled like veins. But the rule sheet was gone, replaced by a fresh page of the same handwriting. New rules. Don't answer its questions. If you hear your own voice, leave immediately. Play the original tape once, only once. My stomach tightened. The original tape. The one I'd found in the woods. On the desk sat the studio cassette deck, door open, waiting. I told myself I'd play 5 seconds, document it, then stop. I pressed play. The chant began again, faint and rhythmic. The meters on the console spiked even though the speakers were muted. The smell of burning wood filled the room. Then, whispering. Dozens of voices layered over one another, all saying my name. Alex Harper. The lights dimmed to crimson. Something heavy moved in the corridor outside, dragging along the wall. I hit stop, the button stuck. I yanked the tape out, but it kept spinning, magnetic ribbon unspooling across the floor like veins of black thread. The door slammed behind me. A shadow pulled under the booth glass, rising like smoke until it took shape, tall, faceless, outlined in flickering static. Its edges distorted reality, bending the equipment toward it like metal drawn to a magnet. The speakers exploded with white noise. Beneath it, a whisper that felt like heat against my ear. "Play it again." I stumbled backward, clutching the tape. "No." The shadow tilted its head, and 1,000 whispers answered at once, "Then we'll play you." The soundboards lit up on their own, sliders moving, switches flipping. The broadcast light turned red. My own voice came through the monitors, speaking live to the empty town. "This is Alex Harper, and you're listening to Ravenwood FM. Tonight, we welcome the shade." I screamed, but the mic swallowed it, replacing the sound with static. The tower outside blazed white for a moment, not red, white, like lightning trapped in glass, and everything went silent. When I opened my eyes, I was sitting in the booth chair. The clock read 3:36 a.m. again. The studio was clean. No broken glass. No melted wires. The tape sat rewound neatly on the desk. And in the reflection of the control room window, Sarah stood behind me, whispering something I couldn't hear. When I turned around, she was gone. Only the note remained, pressed to the glass with a smear of blood. "You played it twice." Outside, the fog was gone. The town lay silent under a thin blue dawn that felt borrowed. I should have felt relief. Instead, the hum in the air had changed, slower, deeper, pulsing in my chest. As I drove home, the car radio flickered between stations, cycling through dead frequencies until one came in clear. My voice again. "This is Alex Harper for Ravenwood FM. If you can hear this broadcast, the loop has begun." I turned the dial off. The voice kept talking. I stopped trusting clocks after that night. No matter how many I bought, they all broke the same way, freezing at 3:36 a.m. Then ticking backward for exactly 47 seconds before dying. I tried to leave Ravenwood. I really did. But every road out curved back toward the tower. Gas stations I'd passed hours earlier reappeared with the same flickering sign, the same half-empty vending machine. Once, I drove until the gauge hit empty, and when the car stalled, I looked up to see the red light pulsing above the trees again. I don't think Ravenwood exists on a normal map anymore. It's like the town's been swallowed, a frequency trapped between channels. The hum had followed me home, seeping through walls and wires. I tore apart the radio, cut the power, even pulled the breaker from the fuse box. The sound stayed. Louder at night, faint during the day, like breathing beneath the floorboards. I hadn't heard Sarah since the night of the new tape. But sometimes, when I woke up gasping in the dark, I swore I heard her voice from the radio tower, a faint, distant call drifting through static. "Alex, finish the song." By the fourth night, I gave up pretending to sleep. I drove back to the station just before 2:30 a.m. The fog was waiting. The tower light blinked slower than before, 6 seconds apart now. The front door opened before I touched it. Inside, the air had changed. No dust, no chill, it was too still, like stepping inside a lung that had stopped exhaling. The rule sheet was gone again. In its place, a strip of magnetic tape stretched across the console in the shape of a symbol, 3 interlocking circles, smudged with ash. A voice whispered through the intercom, low and familiar. "Welcome back, Alex." I froze. "Sarah." The mic light glowed red. "You shouldn't have come." It's feeding on signal strength now. The more you broadcast, the more it wakes. Her voice cracked with static. It's the shade, Alex. It's the voice behind every frequency humans shouldn't hear. The cult built this place to amplify it. Then silence. I stepped into the booth. The window reflected only the tower's pulse. The mic was still live, but the chair was empty. When I turned to leave, the rotary phone started spinning. The receiver lifted itself and dangled, swinging slightly. Static hissed, then a man's voice spoke, calm, clear, like a radio host rehearsing a script. You broke the loop, Alex. Congratulations. Now it needs a new signal to anchor. Yours. My throat tightened. What do you want from me? To finish what we started, the voice said. Play the full transmission. The tape I'd found in the woods lay on the desk again, clean, unspooled, ready. No, I whispered. Not again. The phone laughed, soft, almost kind. You already did. You just don't remember. The hum deepened until it felt like my bones were vibrating. Every light in the room dimmed to the same crimson as the tower's beacon. And then the walls began to breathe. The soundproof foam expanded and contracted with wet, organic rhythm. The smell of soil and rot filled the air. I stumbled backward as black shapes pressed out from the walls, faces, dozens of them, whispering through layers of static. Sarah's voice broke through them. It uses the dead to build itself. Every voice that ever broadcast here. Don't let it finish the song. I clamped my hands over my ears, but the sound pushed through anyway, whispering from inside my skull. Play. 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 I ran for the exit, but the hallway had changed, longer, lined with flickering red lights like a tunnel into nowhere. The tower's hum grew louder with every step, the floor vibrating like a speaker cone. Halfway through, the speakers on the wall erupted with my own voice. This is Alex Harper, and you're tuned to Ravenwood FM. The devil's hour never ends. I screamed, shut up, and smashed the nearest speaker with my flashlight. Static burst out of it like breath. When I reached the front door, it wouldn't budge. The handle burned cold in my hand. Through the glass, the parking lot shimmered, not fog anymore, but something thicker, moving like oil in water. Something was standing in it. The black shade. No shape, no face, just an outline of absolute dark, like light died around it. It drifted toward the door, and every bulb in the hallway exploded at once. I stumbled back into the studio, the only light left coming from the console. The tape deck was still open, waiting. The voice returned over the intercom. Calm. Persuasive. Play it, Alex. It'll all stop. That's why the others did it. Ramsey. Sarah. Ethan. The song keeps it asleep. But Sarah's last message echoed in my head, don't let it finish. I took the tape, snapped it in half, and threw the reels across the room. The lights went out completely. For a second, I thought I'd killed it. The hum stopped. The air went dead still. Then the floor began to vibrate. The console screens flickered to life, showing the tower feed, live video. But the image was wrong. Hundreds of figures standing around the base, heads tilted up toward the beacon, faces half-burned, and twitching in rhythmic motion. Their mouths moved in unison, forming a chant I couldn't hear but felt, deep in my teeth. The tower's light shifted from red to white again, blinding, and the windows shattered inward. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the control room floor. Everything was quiet. The console clock read 2:47 a.m. My phone buzzed beside me. Unknown number. I answered. Sarah's voice. I told you not to break the loop. Before I could speak, the line filled with static, and beneath it, faintly, my own voice whispering, "Play the song." I looked up at the window. In the reflection, the studio behind me wasn't empty. I was still sitting in the chair, talking into the mic. The version of me in the glass smiled, then reached out and switched the broadcast light to red. The air conditioner kicked on. The hum returned. I was back on air. "Good evening," my reflection said, voice perfectly calm. "This is Alex Harper, and you're tuned to Ravenwood FM, where it's always the devil's hour." I backed away from the console, but the mic followed me, hovering, cords stretching like veins. The red light above the booth glowed brighter, bleeding across the walls. I reached for the power switch, but it had melted into the board, fused like skin. The reflection leaned closer to the glass, whispering through static. "You're not the host anymore." Then the signal cut. When I came to, the sky outside was pale gray. No sun. No color. The tower still pulsed white, slow and steady, breathing. I should have been dead. But the broadcast log was running. The system had recorded another hour, all of it my voice, calm, monotone, reading names I'd never heard before. The whispered names. Rule 1. Don't look them up. I scrolled through the list, heart pounding. Every name had a timestamp and a note, confirmed missing, Ravenwood, M.A. The last entry was blank except for a single word, Alex. I stopped pretending the world outside Ravenwood was still there. Days don't start here. Nights don't end. Everything hums in the same dim half-light, like the sky forgot how to move. I've tried every door, every road, every frequency, they all loop back to the same sound, the station calling itself. At first I thought I was losing my mind. Now I think that's the only reason I'm still alive. The tower hasn't blinked in days. Its white light stays constant, searing through the fog like a spotlight from some higher dimension. The town beneath it has gone silent. No cars. No wind. Just the faint whisper of power lines vibrating, tuned to one note. I've stopped hearing the hum. Or maybe I've started to live inside it. The last thing on the logbook was my own name. Under it, one new line appeared during the night, scrawled in handwriting that wasn't mine. You're not the host anymore. You're the broadcast. The studio still smells like burnt plastic and rain. Someone, maybe me, maybe not, left the booth window cracked open. I can hear faint music outside, though there shouldn't be anyone out there. The tune is slow, looping endlessly. The organ melody. The curse song. The speakers hiss to life without me touching them. "Good evening, listeners," my voice says from the console. It's 2:47 a.m. again. Tonight's transmission will be the last. The mic light turns red on its own. I don't remember speaking those words, but as they echo from the monitors, my mouth moves with them. Perfect sync. Sarah's voice cuts in, soft and distant. "You have to end it before it begins again." "How?" I whisper. "Every time it wakes, it needs a voice. You. The only way to kill the signal is to speak through it, not for it." The broadcast flickers, my reflection glitches in the glass, splitting into dozens of overlapping versions, all sitting in the same chair, all waiting for the next line. The tower outside pulses, white fading into black and back again, as if breathing. Somewhere deep inside the static, something shifts, a sound too low to be human. The shade. Sarah's voice is almost gone now, breaking apart between frequencies. It was never about the station. The cult built it around its heartbeat. They thought they could contain it. They didn't realize the broadcast was the cage. Her words fragment into static. The only way out is to make it listen. The phone rings. The rotary, cracked and ancient, spinning by itself. I pick it up. No voice. Just faint, rhythmic breathing. Then the whisper. Say my name. I look at the logbook again, the list of whispered names stretching for pages, all of them marked confirmed missing. I'm not saying it, I breathe. Then you'll never leave, the voice replies. The sound crawls through the line like something alive. My fingertips sting. When I look down, blood seeps from the cracks in my skin, each drop pulsing in time with the tower's light. The voice laughs softly. You're already signal, Alex. Just noise waiting to be translated. The static swells until the whole room vibrates. Papers lift off the desk. The lights melt into a single white glare. Then, silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that feels like pressure, like the air is holding its breath. I hear footsteps in the hallway. Sarah walks in, but she looks wrong. Her eyes are pure static, her skin half translucent, moving slightly out of sync with her steps. She smiles like she remembers how. It's not you, she says. It's the shade wearing what's left of me. I back against the console. Why show me this? To remind you what happens when you let it finish. She points toward the tape deck. One last broadcast, Alex. Either you end it, or it writes you into the loop. The phone starts ringing again. This time, there's no pause between rings, just one long, endless tone. Sarah fades, pixelating into mist. The voice returns through every speaker, now layered with 1,000 others, whispering the same sentence in perfect harmony. Play the song. I pick up the mic. Fine, I whisper. You want a song? Let's finish it together. I reach across the board and crank the gain until the meters scream red. The organ melody starts, faint at first, then louder, until the entire building trembles. But this time, I start speaking over it. This is Alex Harper. You're tuned to Ravenwood FM. If you can hear me, don't listen. If you can't hear me, you're already inside it. The floor shakes. The walls distort. Faces push through the foam again, hundreds, mouths open in silent cries. The shade feeds on repetition. I shout into the mic, every loop gives it form. Every broadcast gives it a body. But what happens when the signal eats itself? I turn the monitor gain all the way up. The feedback howls. For the first time, the shade screams. A sound so deep it warps the air, peeling paint from the walls. The reflection in the booth glass splits into shards, each one showing a different version of me, burned, buried, screaming, silent. The tower outside burns white-hot, then bursts in a blinding flash. The tape unspools, melting into black liquid that drips from the console onto the floor. I keep talking through it. I'm ending the transmission. Ravenwood FM is off the air. The feedback builds to a frequency I can't hear but feel in my teeth, in my skull, in my chest. Then, a single pop. Darkness. When I wake up, I'm lying in the parking lot. The tower is gone. The fog is gone. The horizon glows faintly gold. Morning. Real morning. The studio behind me is a blackened ruin, smoke curling into the pale sky. For the first time in what feels like weeks, I can't hear the hum. Just wind. Birds. I stumble toward my car. The keys are still in the ignition. The clock reads 7:02 a.m. When I turn the radio on, it only plays static. I almost cry from relief. Then, faintly beneath the noise, a voice speaks. This is Sarah Kane, and you're listening to Ravenwood FM. Coming up next, our new technician, Alex Harper. My hand freezes on the dial. The static clears for 1 second. My voice answers her. Morning shift, huh? Guess the curse finally sleeps. And then the radio cuts to silence. I drive until the station disappears in the rearview mirror, until the last thread of smoke blends with the horizon. But the hum doesn't return. Not yet. Some nights, I still wake up at 2:47 a.m. The air feels different then, thicker, expectant. Sometimes I think I hear faint organ notes drifting through the walls. Other times, a phone ringing somewhere in the dark. I never answer. But once, half asleep, I whispered into the silence. Who's there? And through the hum, soft and almost kind, came the reply. You are.